They once laughed in her face, told her she was finished. But tonight, at Manhattan's grandest gala, as Eleanor Vale's Christian Louboutin heels clicked across the marble floor, the entire room fell silent. 3 months ago, she was just a betrayed wife, cast out from the very home she had built. Today, she returned not to beg, but to end the game they thought they were winning. Under the golden chandeliers and the glare of media lenses, Eleanor didn't just wear a perfect Dior gown. She carried a secret, one that could dismantle the financial empire behind her traitorous husband. And when she spoke, the voice of a woman once forgotten made the entire room hold its breath. Morning in the Upper East Side was cold and still, as if the world were holding its breath before something collapsed. In a penthouse lined with marble, Eleanor Vale sat quietly by the window, gazing at the sunlight glinting off glass towers where she once believed love and power were proven. On her phone screen, hundreds of photos circulated. Her husband, Maxwell Grant, with another woman, their radiant smiles at the charity gala she had founded. Beneath the captions, mocking comments, "Eleanor's been replaced. She was never the real one in that marriage." A cold cup of coffee sat on the table. A red evening gown, still tagged, lay draped over a chair. She had bought it for this year's gala. Now, it was merely a relic of a wife erased from public life. The door opened. Clara, her loyal housekeeper, stepped in, an iPad in hand. "Mrs. Vale, the media wants to know if you have a comment." Eleanor looked up. Her gray eyes, once dazzling under camera lights, now dulled like glass about to crack. "No, I have nothing to say." In that moment, she realized something Maxwell never had. Silence held its own power, but it wasn't the kind of silence she was about to unleash. She stood, walked toward the bedroom. Her heels echoed coldly on the wooden floor. Opening the closet, she pulled out a small black box. Inside was an old ID card. Eleanor Vale, Forensic Investigator, U.S. Department of the Treasury. She traced the letters lightly. Memories of hunting financial criminals, tracking dirty money through hundreds of offshore accounts, flooded back like a storm. She had once made corporate giants tremble, but after marrying Maxwell, she had abandoned her career, her predator's instinct to become Mrs. Grant, the perfect woman beside a media billionaire. She smiled bitterly. "You can't defeat what you don't understand," she thought. Maxwell thought he was winning against a wife. In truth, he had awakened a dormant investigator. Noon. The phone rang. It was Lydia, the only friend who still dared to call. "Ellie, have you seen it? They're saying you've been ousted from the board, and Maxwell's putting her in your place." "Yes," Eleanor replied, her voice calm to the point of chilling. "Do you know the one thing Maxwell never learned from me?" "What?" "How to hide financial crimes." She hung up. In the sunlit room, Eleanor opened her laptop, accessed Grant Media's internal network, where she still held temporary clearance. A stream of transaction codes appeared, pulsing like veins. Strange funds flowed to fake charities, then to accounts in the Caymans. All bore Maxwell's digital signature. She didn't need proof to know he'd betrayed her in love. But now, she had proof he'd betrayed the law. She closed the laptop, looked at herself in the mirror. No longer the haggard face of a discarded wife. Only the calculating gaze of a woman plotting her move. "Fine," she whispered. "If they want a show, I'll give them a finale they deserve." That afternoon, Eleanor left the house, a cream trench coat draped over her shoulders, dark sunglasses shielding her eyes. She stepped into a Soho boutique. The saleswoman greeted her with a familiar smile. "Mrs. Vale, looking for something today? An evening gown, perhaps?" Eleanor smiled, sharp as a blade. "No, I need armor." "Evening." She paused before a towering building, its green neon sign reflecting on her face. The words, "Vale Consulting," closed. Her old firm, where she had made her name. She pulled a key from her purse, turned the lock. The door opened. Dust swirled like revived memories. In the empty office, Eleanor approached the desk, flipped on the light. On the wall hung a framed award, Outstanding Forensic Analyst. She set her laptop down, booted up the old system, began copying data. Outside, New York glowed with billboards and laughter-filled parties. Here, a plan for revenge was written in code, not tears. She glanced at her watch. 3 months until the winter gala where Maxwell would publicly flaunt his mistress. 3 months, she whispered. Enough time to rebuild the entire stage. And as night fell over Manhattan, Eleanor Vale, the forgotten woman, began orchestrating a gala no one in this city would ever forget. 3 days later, New York was drenched in rain. The autumn downpour left Park Avenue slick with light, like streaks of blood running long. Eleanor sat in a black Bentley, watching raindrops hit the glass like the steady pulse of her forming plan. On the seat beside her was a thick file evidence of Maxwell Grant's illicit transactions. Each page was a cold cut, carving out the sins he thought buried. But to Eleanor, every number spoke, and she knew how to listen. She turned into a narrow street in Tribeca. Inside a red brick building was the office of Jonas Reed, her former colleague, a financial tech genius feared by banks but respected by the FBI. Jonas opened the door, frowned when he saw her. "Eleanor Vale, I thought you'd left the game." "I was on a break," she replied, her eyes sharp as a knife. "Now I need a blueprint, not to hide, but to strike." Jonas skimmed the file, chuckled softly. "Grant Media, you're taking down your own husband?" "No," Eleanor said. "I'm letting him destroy himself." They shook hands. In the dim glow of screens, Eleanor laid out her plan. No rumors, no tearful media pleas. She would craft a financial report so airtight that the SEC would act before Maxwell knew what hit him. Jonas nodded, half admiring, half wary. "You know, this kind of revenge doesn't leave ashes, it leaves lessons," Eleanor smiled. "That's the point." That night, she returned to her empty penthouse. For the first time since her world collapsed, she played music. Debussy's Clair de Lune filled the air, gentle yet ruthless, like fate's laughter. She looked around. Wedding photos, Maxwell's awards, framed mementos of a love meticulously displayed. A fabricated world. She began removing each frame from the wall, tossing them into the trash. Each thud was a crack in her old shell. When she reached the final frame, an envelope fell out. Inside was an invitation to the winter charity gala hosted by Maxwell Grant and his new partner, Ava Sinclair. Venue, the Plaza Hotel, 5th Avenue. She stared at the card for a long moment. Then, in a low, raspy voice, she said, "Fine. If they want me out of the story, I'll write the ending on their stage." The following weeks were sleepless. Eleanor returned to Vale Consulting, now her war room. Screens lined the walls, displaying charts of funds, accounts, and names tied to the scheme. Beside her were Jonas and Lydia, her loyal friend who had quit her PR role at Maxwell's company to join Eleanor's side. "We don't just need data," Lydia said. "We need an audience." Eleanor nodded. "I'll make the media show up expecting my second humiliation. They'll leave with the story of the century." Jonas looked at her, half afraid, half awestruck. "Are you sure? This move will end Grant Media." "Jonas," she replied softly. "He ended me long ago. I'm just finishing what he started." One night, when the team had left, Eleanor sat alone. The screen's glow cast shadows on her face, like a living Caravaggio painting. On the desk were 2 photos, one in her white wedding gown, another in a black suit from her investigator days. She placed them side by side, stared for a long time, then tore the wedding photo in half. "No more Mrs. Grant," she whispered. "Only Eleanor Vale." She opened a drawer, pulled out a small box containing diamond earrings, a gift from her mother before she passed. Inside the box, etched words, "Dignity cannot be stolen, only given away." Eleanor smiled faintly. "I gave it away too long, Mom. Now I'm taking it back." She hit send on the final encrypted report to Jonas. Subject, Operation Vale. A message popped up. "Done. SEC will receive it within 48 hours. Eleanor leaned back, closed her laptop. She listened to the rain outside, as if the city were washing her past clean. Somewhere among the skyscrapers, Maxwell was still laughing with Ava, thinking he'd won. He didn't know the game had started without a bell. Winter swept into Manhattan, sharp as a blade. The Plaza Hotel, the heart of high society, glowed like a giant diamond at 5th Avenue's edge. From afar, limousines lined up under palm trees strung with lights. Inside, the winter gala was underway the night Maxwell Grant and Ava Sinclair debuted as America's new media power couple. Camera flashes sparked. Laughter and clinking crystal glasses rang out in a symphony of vanity. On stage, Maxwell spoke of love, charity, and rebuilding public trust. His voice boomed, confident, polished as an ad. And then heels clicked. No one noticed when the doors opened. But as the woman crossed the red carpet, the music seemed to freeze midair. Eleanor Vale, no longer the scorned wife they'd mocked. She appeared in a sleek black gown, its sharp cut elegant yet chilling. The lights caught her bare shoulders, like moonlight on a honed blade. The MC stammered. Cameras swung. Maxwell faltered, his smile cracked. Ava gripped her wineglass, her hand trembling. "Eleanor, what are you doing here?" Maxwell asked, his voice urgent, laced with fear. Eleanor tilted her head, her lips curving slightly. "I was invited. That's impossible. I believe you sent the invitation." She held up the card, gold-embossed words. "Mr. and Mrs. Grant cordially invite," glinting in the light. Whispers rippled through the room like waves. She walked to the center table. Every eye followed, mesmerized. Eleanor moved deliberately, each step rhythmic, like someone who knew exactly what she was doing. When she reached Maxwell, she paused. Her voice rang out, soft but cutting. "You're right, Maxwell. Love and trust matter, especially when you've stolen both." The room held its breath. Maxwell forced a laugh. "Eleanor, don't do this here." She raised a hand, silencing him. "Oh no, I came to say thank you." Eleanor handed a silver-plated USB to a waiter. "Would you please play my thank you video on the big screen?" On stage, the massive screen lit up. The music stopped. The video wasn't a toast, it was a detailed ledger of Maxwell Grant's financial transactions, funneling money to sham charities in the Caribbean. Bold text flashed. "Evidence presented to SEC. Case number 0117, Grant Media Holdings." The crowd erupted into chaos, shouts, gasps, and relentless camera clicks. Maxwell paled, turned to Ava. "Did you know about this?" Ava stepped back, her face gripped with panic. Eleanor stood still. She looked straight into the cameras, beaming live to hundreds of thousands on social media. "I'm not here for revenge," she said, her voice low and clear. "I'm here to prove. When men think they're playing a power game, they forget some women know the law better than they ever will." Scattered applause broke out, strange but forceful. From a corner, Lydia, her loyal friend, smiled, signaling, "Perfect." The SEC had received the file 24 hours earlier. Now, the public bore witness. Eleanor stepped closer to Maxwell, whispered just loud enough for the mic to catch. "I'm not destroying you, Maxwell. You did that yourself. I'm just sending the bill." She lifted a champagne flute from the table, turned to the crowd. To Truth, and to those who thought women only know silence. She drained the glass, set it down. The music returned, not the Gala's orchestra, but a mournful cello. Eleanor turned and walked out, leaving behind gasps, flashes, and a crumbling empire. As she left the hotel, snow began to fall. Flakes sparkled in her dark hair like silver. Lydia ran after her, draped a coat over her shoulders. "You just made the whole city go quiet, Ellie." "Good," she replied, eyes on the sky. "They need to learn how to hear silence." The next morning, the headlines exploded. Grant Media collapses. SEC launches full investigation. Eleanor Vale, the woman who silenced high society. While America debated the scandal of the year, Eleanor sat quietly in a modest Brooklyn rental. No glamour, no red carpet, just a calm space with morning light filtering through the curtains. She was brewing coffee. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the adrenaline still lingering from the night before. The first call came from Lydia. "Ellie, they're losing it. Maxwell's detained for questioning, Ava's vanished from the city, and the press is calling you the Iron Widow." Eleanor chuckled softly. "Sounds like a movie title." "Yeah, and you're the director." She set the mug down, looked out the window. The streets below buzzed with people, unaware that a media empire had crumbled overnight. She thought she'd feel triumphant. Instead, a cold emptiness settled in her chest. She had won, but this victory had no soundtrack. 2 weeks later, Maxwell Grant appeared on the news, no longer in a $100,000 suit, just a gray jacket as he left the prosecutor's office. His company was frozen, Assets seized. His powerful friends turned their backs. Ava Sinclair was wanted for complicity. The media hounded Eleanor. She declined interviews. She didn't need applause. She just needed peace to decide who she'd be after the storm. One evening, Lydia brought a small box. A gift from an anonymous sender. It was delivered to your old office. Inside was a memory card and a handwritten note. If you want to use your power for good, open it. Eleanor hesitated. Curiosity won. She plugged in the card. Files flooded the screen. Shady financial reports. International money laundering networks. The file name, Project Obsidian. The source, a high-end art conglomerate suspected of funding global money laundering. She frowned. This was no longer personal revenge. This was a real war where justice outranked emotion. The next day, she met Jonas Reed at their usual cafe. I thought you'd take a break for at least a few months, he said. I don't rest, Eleanor replied, her gaze steady. I just change battlefields. Jonas skimmed the data, whistled softly. If this is legit, it could shake Wall Street. Eleanor nodded. Then we need a team. She started making calls, old contacts from the Treasury, a fraud specialist lawyer, an investigative journalist. One by one, they agreed. Not for money, because they knew Eleanor Vale was the only one who could deliver justice without fear. 3 weeks later, Vale Forensics opened in a sleek glass tower in Tribeca. No logo, no flashy signage, just a small silver plaque. Truth doesn't need an audience. The first month, she worked through the night. Whiteboards were scrawled with arrows, diagrams, and names of offshore companies, woven like a spider's web. During a late-night meeting, Jonas looked at her, half joking, half serious. You know, Vale Forensics is becoming what Grant Media dreamed of, an empire built on truth. I don't want an empire, Eleanor replied. I want a legacy. She looked up, her eyes catching the green neon glow. I use silence for revenge. Now, I'll use transparency to take down those who think the law is a game. 3 months later, Eleanor stood in a conference room, her new team before her. Lydia ran communications. Jonas handled tech. A wall of screens displayed data. Project Obsidian. Initial findings. We're not just exposing criminals, Eleanor said. We're redefining justice in the corporate world. If they hide behind money, we'll find them with light. The room erupted in applause. Eleanor's gaze drifted to the window, Manhattan glittering below. Down there, the plaza still shone witness to that fateful night. She whispered to herself. I wasn't born for revenge. I was born to make them fear doing wrong. Night in Tribeca pulsed with green light from computer screens. In Vale Forensics' office, Eleanor stood before a whiteboard, its lines and arrows a web of connections. Each dot, each arrow was a piece of Project Obsidian, America's most intricate money laundering case. $1 billion hidden behind contemporary art, funneled through private galleries in Miami, Paris, and Hong Kong. Dirty money washed clean by prestige and diamonds. Eleanor knew this wasn't just financial crime. It was an ecosystem of corruption, where money bought morality. Jonas approached, placed a hot coffee on the desk. We're tracking at least 47 offshore accounts, he said. But the scary part? Every transaction looks legal on paper. Eleanor stared at the screen, her voice low. Nothing's legal if it's built on lies. They're just hiding crimes with pretty signatures. She zoomed in on the transaction map. At its center, the Artemis Group, an art investment conglomerate based in Washington. Its CEO Nikolai Volkov, a Russian billionaire, was suspected of buying stolen artworks to launder money. 2 days later, Eleanor and Lydia flew to Washington. The meeting took place in a lavish oak-paneled office, overlooking Lafayette Park. Volkov appeared tall, immaculate in a black suit, his smile cold as glass. Miss Vale, he said in a deep voice, I've heard of you. The woman who toppled Grant Media in a single night. If you're laundering money, Eleanor replied, I hope you're better prepared than Maxwell. Volkov laughed, his eyes darkening. I hired you to uncover the truth, not to accuse me. I only do one thing, she said. Find out who's lying. As they left, Lydia whispered, Do you think he's clean? Eleanor replied curtly, I think he's scared, and fear is the first sign of guilt. The weeks that followed were a blur of warlike precision at Vale Forensics. Data poured in from across the globe. Eleanor slept 3 hours a night. She woke in darkness, watching Manhattan through her glass window, a city reflecting both its lights and its secrets. Jonas found an anomaly, a series of transactions signed with the same digital identifier. Decoded, the name sent a chill down Eleanor's spine. Julian Thorne. She whispered. Impossible. Julian, Grant Media's former financial architect, vanished after the plaza. Now, he was the linchpin of Obsidian. Eleanor knew. This wasn't just an investigation. It was revenge, version 2, but this time, her enemy wasn't her ex-husband. It was the man manipulating an entire system. One late night, as the office lay silent, Eleanor received an anonymous text. Stop, or this time, they'll erase your name from every record. She sat still, the glowing screen her only light. No fear, just familiarity. She opened a drawer, pulled out the memory card with the Plaza video proof she'd once destroyed an empire with truth alone. She placed it beside the Obsidian files, a reminder. Truth always had a cost, but she'd paid it and survived. 3 days later, Eleanor appeared on the financial news show Morning Ledger. Studio lights gleamed off her pristine white dress, a wordless statement. The host asked, Eleanor Vale, you've toppled one conglomerate. Now you're chasing players far bigger. Aren't you afraid? Eleanor smiled. I'm not afraid of the dark. I've lived in it. I'm only afraid of the silence of those who know but won't speak. Her words spread like wildfire. The press dubbed her the Truth Architect. That evening, as she left the studio, Gabriel Morrow, the Ledger's editor-in-chief, waited outside. He handed her a coffee, his familiar smile warm. I just watched a woman remind America what integrity means, he said. Integrity doesn't sell headlines, she replied. No, Gabriel said, but it keeps people from falling apart. Eleanor gave a rare smile. Amid the city's chaos, they stood quietly, watching lights shimmer on the Hudson River. Tonight, she didn't feel alone. She felt alive. February's icy wind whipped through Manhattan, rattling Vale Forensics glass windows like a warning. On the screens, strange data streams appeared, transactions Jonas had traced from the Obsidian network. That familiar digital signature surfaced again. JT Capital. Jonas looked up, his voice hoarse. Eleanor, I'm certain. It's Julian Thorne. He's alive. And he's running all of Obsidian from Monaco. The name silenced the room. Julian, the financial genius who'd manipulated Grant Media, disappeared after the plaza. Now, he was the mastermind of a global laundering ring. Eleanor froze. I knew he'd come back, she said, but I didn't expect him to walk my path. She studied the transaction map. Monaco circled in red. Get ready, she said softly. We're going there. We're going there. 3 days later, Mediterranean sunlight bathed Monte Carlo's bay. The city gleamed, a mirror reflecting gilded lies. Eleanor stood in the lobby of an art auction house, posing as a financial consultant for an anonymous client. Sunglasses on, hair neatly pinned, her ivory dress made her look like an aristocratic appraiser. On stage, an abstract painting was up for bid. But Eleanor's focus wasn't the price, it was the digital signature encoded in the payment. Julian's trace. She was closing in. He'll be here tonight, Jonas said through her earpiece. This auction's a trap. We just need him to show, Eleanor replied softly. And we need one more player in this game. Before she could elaborate, the back door opened. A woman appeared, blonde, familiar Serafina Thorne, Julian's sister. No, not quite. Eleanor froze, recognizing her fully. Serafina was far from the woman who'd once stood by Maxwell. Simpler now, her eyes weary but gleaming with strange pride. What are you doing here, Serafina? Eleanor asked coldly. Call it redemption, Serafina replied, her voice low, almost a whisper. My uncle Julian is using the financial models I designed. If you don't stop him, he'll destroy everything, including me. Eleanor narrowed her eyes. Why should I trust you? Because this time, I'm not here to steal. I'm here to help you take him down. In that moment, two women once enemies faced each other, one tied to the past, the other to justice. The silence stretched, taut as a blade. Then Eleanor nodded slightly. We share an enemy. Just remember, this time, I'm leading the game. That evening, they met in a penthouse overlooking Monte Carlo's harbor. Neon lights reflected on Eleanor and Serafina's faces as they reviewed the final transaction chain. Julian was less than 3 blocks away, at a private Artemis Group party. "He thinks you're just an investigator," Serafina said. "He doesn't know you have evidence of the Caribbean funds." "Good," Eleanor replied. "I want him to know after he's out of moves." The plan was set. Eleanor would approach Julian as an Artemis-hired auditor, while Serafina infiltrated the internal account system she'd once built. Once their data aligned, the SEC would have undeniable proof. That night, at the Hermitage Hotel's Grand Hall, Julian Thorne appeared suave, confident, flanked by lawyers and bodyguards. Seeing Eleanor approach, he smiled faintly. "The beauty of Grant Media," he said. "I hear you've become a hero of truth." "I'm no hero," Eleanor replied. "Just someone who hates lies, especially lies wrapped in silk ties." He laughed. "I admire you, but this game is bigger than you think." Eleanor tilted her head. "I'm not here to win. I'm here to end it." From afar, Serafina signaled. "System breached. Data uploading to SEC servers." Julian sensed something wrong. He grabbed his phone, checked the codes too late. On the hall's massive screen, a chart appeared. Obsidian cash flow, evidence of global money laundering. The crowd froze. Julian turned to Eleanor, his eyes a mix of hatred and odd respect. "You used my own kin to betray me," he whispered. "No," Eleanor said. "I taught her how to choose the right side." Monaco police stormed in. Julian was cuffed amid flashing cameras. Serafina stood behind Eleanor, silent. As the crowd dispersed, she murmured, "I once wanted to destroy you, but you're the only one who showed me what freedom means." Eleanor gazed at the night sea, silver waves churning under moonlight. "We don't need forgiveness to stand on the right side, just to know when to stop seeking revenge." 2 months after Julian Thorne's arrest, New York's skyline blazed like a stage. Under flashing lights, Eleanor Vale stepped onto the podium at the Global Financial Integrity Conference, attended by the world's sharpest minds. Her deep teal dress was simple, elegant, no trace of the woman once cast out from high society. The applause lingered as the host introduced her, the woman who turned shame into power. The one who proved justice needs no glitz, just truth. Eleanor bowed, took a deep breath, began, "Not long ago, I thought justice was something others granted you. Now I know it's something you forge with knowledge, persistence, and uncompromising courage against lies." At the back, Lydia smiled. Jonas nodded proudly. Serafina now, a Vale forensics consultant, sat quietly, her eyes reflecting a newfound softness. The press conference afterward buzzed with questions. "Eleanor, do you see yourself as a feminist icon?" "No," she replied. "I don't fight for women. I fight as a woman." "Will you enter politics?" "I've been in the world's most powerful rooms," Eleanor smiled. "And I learned truth doesn't always need a parliament. It just needs someone to speak it." She left the stage to roaring applause, walked down a gold-lit hallway. Gabriel Morrow waited, coffee in hand, his familiar smile warm. "I heard that speech 3 times on livestream," he said. "Hope you're not bored." "Never," he replied, his eyes kind. "Because each time, you speak less of revenge and more of freedom." Eleanor gave a soft laugh. "Freedom's the only prize worth having, Gabriel. Not fame, not money, just the ability to live true, unafraid." They stepped outside. The city roared, cars honked, but to Eleanor, everything felt different. Each siren, each light was a pulse of the life she'd lost and now reclaimed, piece by piece. That night, she returned to Vale Forensics. The office was dark, only window light spilling across her desk. A black envelope waited. Inside was an antique compass, once Julian Thorne's, with a small note. "The game may end, but the board never disappears." She watched the compass needle tremble, then laughed softly. "No need, Julian. I've found my direction." She placed it in a drawer, beside the Gala invitation, a symbol of where she fell and where she rose. Eleanor sat, opened her laptop. Dozens of emails awaited. Pleas from governments, organizations, individuals buried by corporate lies. She read slowly, her eyes brightening. "Jonas," she said through the intercom, "ready the team. The next case looks bigger than Obsidian." "Again? Ever think of resting?" "Later," she laughed. "For now, There are masks to unpeel. At dawn, Eleanor left the office. The cold stung her face, but she felt warm. She walked past Fifth Avenue where, years ago, she'd entered the plaza under scornful eyes. Now, no one saw her as weak. They saw her as the one rewriting the rules. She paused before Grant Media's old building, its name replaced. The new sign gleamed. Vale Group Holdings. Eleanor touched the glass, her gaze calm. I didn't take back what was yours, Maxwell. I took back what was always mine, my voice. A strong gust carried the scent of snow and Manhattan's sleepless hum. Eleanor looked up, closed her eyes. A voice within her rang low, steady, proud. Revenge binds you to your enemy, but justice frees you from your own fear. New York's night was a symphony of light. On the top floor of Vale Group, Eleanor Vale stood alone, gazing at the endless city below. Wind tossed her hair, but she didn't shield herself. She welcomed it as if each gust whispered, "Everything you endured was worth it." Behind her, the screen glowed with Vale Forensics' logo. A new email flashed. From U.S. Treasury, confidential inquiry. Subject, the Pandora contract. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. A new case. A secret possibly tied to those who applauded her yesterday. She smiled not with triumph, but with the certainty of someone stepping into a bigger, riskier, necessary fight. She packed her laptop, turned off the light, gazed at New York sky. No ending is forever, she said softly. Just the next chapter of truth. From afar, church bells tolled in the sleepless city. Eleanor closed her eyes, breathed deeply, felt an unfamiliar peace. She had come full circle from the humiliated to the one who made the world bow to truth. Eleanor Vale's story isn't just a tale of revenge. It's a reminder to us all. You don't need anyone to grant you power. You just need the courage to claim it.